Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Too Many Men podcast. This is your beginnings of sleep-deprived playoff coverage, but we love it. And of course, I am thrilled to be joined by, and we kind of kept this a little quiet, friends, because we were protecting our emotional health, but happy reunited cat mom, Sara Sivian. Sara, you had a little bit of distress while your cat decided to take a walkabout around your neighborhood, and somehow managed to still provide. I just love your game coverage because it's like nobody else. You always take an angle no one expects and teach us something and entertain us. So you were crushing it while waiting for your sweet Rangoon to come back. How are you?
Oh yeah, I'm exhausted, but I finally got to sleep last night because after doing everything, every minute I wasn't at the rink, I was just looking for her. She left when I was away this weekend, and I have like a cat lady that lives across from me, and she was just saying she's gonna come back. Don't worry, this happens to me all the time. I've never had a cat before, so I didn't know how common it was, but at 1 a.m. today, I just heard some meowing and she was just there like nothing had happened. I'm like, I've been dying and crying over you every second, but she's back and she's all good.
Well, we're so happy for you and for Rangoon. She knows where she should be, and it's very wonderful for us here at Too Many Men and all of us who love you. So yay. We would not be Too Many Men without someone who is just literally a resource for all things hockey, particularly playoff coverage, putting out even new content today that I am just taking in every single word of. If you have a question, if you need to know what's going on, you go to our very own Shayna Goldman. Shayna, say hi.
Hi. Can we give a nice shout out for the first time ever in Too Many Men history to the NHL schedulers, because these staggered starts are giving me life. I feel like I don't feel like I'm overwhelmed. I feel like I've taken in so much of the games already without, like, even with the small bit of overlap, it's totally okay. This is how it needs to be in the regular season, because like my brain does not feel like it's overloaded through 2 days. I feel fucking good. And it's because the games you're actually able to watch everything. I don't feel like I'm playing catch up. It's amazing. So NHL schedulers, I know you're listening because we have a beef.
Everyone does. Yes.
Yeah.
Shayna,
everyone listens to me.
We got to talk about this. You're only supposed to say hi. You're taking.
I know, but I'm so energized by this. I've been waiting for this moment. The fact that we had a 7 and a 7:30 and 9:30 and a 10. Come on, we have to speak.
All right. Well, Shayna has spoken. We might need a new segment. We need how does this affect Rod Brindamore? And now we have a Shayna has spoken segment. But before we get to Sarah's Rod Brindamore segment, which is still percolating, we might get there. We are going to go to Sarah's very favorite other segment. And Sara, what time is it?
Bit O News.
It is time for Bit O News. This is very, very exciting. Again, it is playoffs, so things are happening at a rapid fire pace. As you know, we will bring you content every Tuesday and Thursday, recording on Monday and Wednesday. So just know that about our frame of reference when we're talking. But let's just share some quick news. We did want to mention, if you are interested in this narrative, you probably already read or heard 16 versions of it, so we're not going to go into it. But the Matt Dumba hit on Joe Pavelski, obviously, we just want to note that Pavs being out as of Wednesday morning, he was not in the lines for morning skate. That is a big blow to Dallas. We hope he gets better soon. Sara, you are covering the Bruins for all of us lucky readers and tweeters. Big news coming out of Boston here. There was a flu bug that was running through the team. And so when Patrice Bergeron did not play in game 1, we assumed it was that, but he is not playing in game 2, and there's a different update. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, well, we didn't assume it was that. They
Fair.
told us it was that. And I still think he'd been maintaining an injury that hasn't been that serious from the end of the season. And they like kept him in and taken him out and things like that for precautionary reasons, whatever that really does mean, you know what I mean? But he did have a stomach bug, unless everyone's lying to me, but he did in game 1. And now he's done with that. But then they're like, okay. I mean, we're all jumping to conclusions here. And if you look at every Bruins reporter's mentions, it's like 17 different takes all over the place. But I do think if they lose tonight, they'll probably put him in. I'm not sure if it's reoccurring, not reoccurring. What's it called?
Like when it comes, like the injuries coming back, like an
Yeah,
aggravating?
aggravation.
Re-aggravated.
Yeah.
We have
And
words here. We're all writers. We're really good at
yeah,
this.
I'm getting my brain cells back after focusing on my cat. But anyway, I'm not sure if it's an aggravation of what he was dealing with, but I think it's fair to assume that it is, right? And they're probably like, I mean, they were so not dominant. They weren't that dominant in their 5-on-5 play over the Panthers in game one, but they just are so talented and deep that it worked out. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if they keep him out of a playoff game for precautionary reasons, but it might be just day to day. It is day to day. So we'll leave it at that.
Shayna, to Sarah's point, with all due respect, if there's an opponent that barely got into the postseason and one that maybe it is worth taking a risk of keeping a star player like Bergeron out to get healthy for perhaps some more meaningful games down the stretch, this might be it. What is your take on the impact of Patrice Bergeron not being in the lineup, and should they hold him out if this is about trying to get him healthier for later games in this postseason?
Yeah, like we know players are willing to play through anything, and Bergeron's no exception to that. You look at his past in the postseason, what he has battled through, there's no need for it right now. This team is so deep. Pavel Zacha is handling the role, moving up as the top line center. You have the versatility in your lineup. You have the depth, because if you move someone who's on the wing up to center, like they have the forwards to put on that second line wing now. They have this really well-rounded lineup. If something changes and, somehow the Bruins felt their backs were going up against the wall, it's a different conversation to have, like how ready is Bergeron at that moment in time. But until then, you really don't need to. Like the thing with it was in game one, as much as the Bruins were not the best team through 2 periods. They had some like really great lateral plays in line, came up with the saves. In the third period, the way they shut down play, which is what you expect Bergeron to be a huge part of, right? They managed that without him. That was the most impressive part to me. They really controlled the pace in the third period and protected their lead. They did that without Bergeron. Just keep rolling that way.
Excellent. All right. The other piece of news that we have, and I was working last night, so I was only able to take in recaps and as much as I've been able to devour this morning on the other games on the docket Tuesday night. But I did look at this. I don't know if I'm happy I did, but in the Winnipeg Vegas series game one, Morgan Barron, in a net front kind of collapse battle of bodies, takes Brossoit's skate to his face, gets 75 stitches, and then comes back to finish the game. I have to imagine that is not going to be one pretty mug this morning as the swelling and bruising kind of takes hold. We are not one to glorify injuries for the sake of taking injuries, and we're also very careful about doing the tough hockey player narrative. But this was shocking on like 18 different levels. Sara, when did you find out what was going on in this game? I don't know if you're able to watch it live. And what is your take on Morgan Barron getting injured, 75 stitches, and coming back?
I know. There's 2 schools of thought when it comes to this, right? Like that's hockey. That's why we love hockey. And then no, he should be out for the rest of the season. And I think I fall somewhere in between, if I'm being honest. It's his decision if he wants to go back. It's playoff hockey. This is what, like, you can't understand that unless you have grown up wanting to play. And obviously there is something to say about the culture that allows it to happen. But since it's allowing it to happen, like, don't get mad at the player. And it is badass. I mean, I'm just going to say, I wouldn't encourage doing that, but I do think, well, he did it. I mean, that's really impressive and shows his heart, even if it's not safe or a good idea.
You have to hope and trust that team doctors did say it was okay to return to the ice with the injury. And, often this is kind of one of those things where sometimes if you're going to play, it's right after it actually, because there might be a lot more pain, as I mentioned, in the days to follow. And that's going to be a gnarly, gnarly scar. Shayna, what was your take on this insane situation?
Yeah, like the adrenaline, I'm sure, was flowing. So it's a little bit easier to hop back and play versus like the next morning waking up and just feeling it. It was such a chaotic play right there. And like the focus when I was first watching it was on the saves Brossoit was making and the desperation of the defenders to keep the puck out of the net, because that, off the bat, it was so early in the game. But on that replay, you see Barron grabbing his face and the blood everywhere, which was like so gruesome. when you hear a player gets like 15, 20 stitches and comes back into the game, it's like, wow, holy shit. 75, like the perspective of that was just so nuts. It's so unfortunate. And this is like what I think we need to like keep stressing, like the randomness of hockey and what happens and like how dangerous the sport is, because this was just a freak thing. It's really good to see that he's okay and that he was able to return. Hopefully, yeah, like everyone said it was safe and he was the one that wanted to do it, I'm sure. But like, my God, kudos to him. That was badass. And that was so unlucky. Hopefully we don't see any more injuries like that. I hate it.
Yes.
I hate
please.
when it's like that, where it's unlucky and bad luck.
Absolutely.
I hate anything with like players getting cut by skates and like
Ugh,
there are
I
things
just-
that are it's yeah, like what, and you know, everyone always is like, well, what should we do to avoid that? Like you really can't unless you put them in like a bubble and like literally here you are in like a chainmail outfit, like they're not gonna be able to move. That's just really bad luck.
I did see like 1 or 2 lone tweets coming out being like, this is why they should wear cages. I was like, oh boy, here we go.
No, don't start.
We don't need
Sometimes-
that. We don't need that.
I know.
Sometimes with our discourse, and we mean it with the best intentions when we say things like this, right? But this is the one time I'll say you haven't played the game. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, players don't want to wear a cage for a reason. And yeah, I just think like if you haven't played the game, maybe you don't know the full extent as to why.
Yeah. And I will say
like,
too,
there's some, sorry, go.
you do have to like figure out the law of averages here. Like if 1 in 10,000 million plane flights crash, does that mean we stop flying planes? Like there's something to be said for that too. All right, let's move on to our most controversial segment. Folks, even when you ask us to not, like they demand it. They command
the universe.
We love them.
The universe decides we have to talk about the Leafs. They're the center of the universe. We cannot help it.
Folks,
Ask for a boring game. Ask for the team to become boring. It'll never happen.
it is time for, as Shayna shared, how does this affect the Leafs? If you are living under a rock, you are not aware that first and foremost, the rematch of Tampa Bay Toronto has been written in basically stone for months. We knew this was coming. Going into this series, Toronto is the home team. Tampa Bay is limping into the postseason. Their head coach is talking about how they're not necessarily mentally checked in. Tampa Bay goes into Toronto and promptly hangs 7 on the Leafs. There are so many narratives here, my friend. There is, of course, the Bunting hit on Chernak, who leaves the game. Bunting has a hearing, and as we record, there is no update on that. Victor Hedman leaves the game and did not return. He was seen in the tunnel greeting his teammates as they came off the ice after the game. Samsonov was pulled late in the game. There were 8,000 penalties, which apparently has something to do with now the Leafs are blaming the officials, which you can't necessarily when you're taking, let me double check here, a total of 6 different penalties in the game. 9,000 narratives. The ultimate fact at the end of the day is that the Leafs could not get it done in perhaps their most heavily favored scenario against the Lightning to date. Sara, where do we start with this one?
Am I a fucking idiot? Why did I think that Tampa Bay Lightning were going to win one game? Like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? Nikita Kucherov? Are you kidding? Andrei Vasilevsky? Are you kidding? The Toronto Maple Leafs? I thought they were going to sweep. I thought they were going to win one. And then you have where do we even begin? Do we begin with the officiating discourse, the Michael Bunting pre-discourse, and then what actually happened? Do we begin with now Leafs fans are saying at least sweep us so we don't have to take it to 7 games, which I respect. I don't know. I don't even know where to begin.
Okay, Shayna, where do you want to begin? Pick one. Pick any of those topics. Seriously, pick one.
Oh my God. Okay, before we get to Bunting.
No.
Let's talk about the Lightning. But okay, let's talk about the Lightning. Let's talk about the Lightning right now.
Let's do it.
Okay. The Lightning, people someone like in the comments I saw immediately, like I did a quick scan and they were like, oh, the Lightning stumbled into the playoffs with like 98 points. Listen, they did. The end of the season wasn't good. This team really like was struggling to break even in expected goals. The results were even worse. We all saw this team limp into the playoffs, whether you want to go by the numbers of them not being good or the narratives of like, did they just get on their heels because they knew they were in? Whatever it is, right? They are alive. They're alive and well. They are here to play, and they are here to play through injuries. This is with this series, as much as one can be the better team than the other, like by the numbers and be the better team, there is this like will over skill that we have to ask if the Leafs learned from the Lightning last postseason, right? Like that was the difference. Alison, I remember you even saying like, this is not the narrative you ever go for, but that was the difference in like game 6 or 7. And you see it like they're getting dealt a shitty hand, the Lightning. They lose Victor Hedman. They lose Chernak. Mikey Eastmont got hurt on top of it. It just like isn't ideal for them in any which way. And the Leafs started to come back and the Lightning were like, we're not fucking dead yet. And just took the game, took control of it. That's huge.
Yeah, not only are they not dead, they scored 7 goals.
So let's try and break this down somehow. This is all very, very insane. Sara, you were talking about this on Twitter this morning. The Wes McCauley discourse. The Leafs fans have somehow decided that the only reason their team lost is because the officials hate their team. Honestly, can we talk about the fact that you let the other team score 2 even strength goals to start the game before there's even a power play goal or a penalty called? I get fans being fans, but also like control your destiny here, people. What say you to the Wes McCauley truth deniers, truthers, whatever we want to call them?
Well, they were 501 this season with Wes McCauley officiating. So I don't really know. And it was just so funny that this discourse happened. The thing is, there was some trial that Wes McCauley was in. Like hockey people know each other in the hockey world, and it is very connected. And why are you just conjuring this up now? And it was right before the game. I like that it wasn't even after the game. It was like, okay, just in case we lose, we got a reason. We already got the insurance. Let's go. It's Wes McCauley, who is a great official. Like he is a great official, and he has never everybody has had controversial calls, but like we all respect Wes McCauley for his officiating, and he's one of like the bright, quirky things about our league. So just the fact that they were already like hammering that, and then Michael Bunting does an egregious hit. It's like, no, what do you want Wes McCauley to do about that? Oh, he's biased because Michael Bunting is doing a dirty thing. So I don't even know.
Shayna, I think, and I would have to go check, I'm actually keeping track of this because I'm ridiculous. This might have been the most, yes, it was, 8 power play opportunities for the Tampa Bay Lightning in this game. That is the most for any team through round 1 play. Is the conspiracy true or not true? And did Tampa Bay just benefit from Toronto being undisciplined?
Yeah, Tampa Bay benefited from Toronto being undisciplined. Now, that's not to say that Tampa was perfect either. There were absolutely missed calls, just as there were in any other series. Look at the Wild series. There were cross-checks that weren't called, that were super dramatic too. Like people talk about Ryan Suter cross-checking Kaprizov, if I remember correctly. Like, it's going to happen in every series. There's a human element to it. It would be better if it were balanced. But this year, we're seeing a rise in penalties. We're seeing a rise in power play scoring as a result. So it just pushes the need for more discipline. And the Maple Leafs let this game get away from them in so many ways. Like if we look back at it, the first period, the Maple Leafs were not very good. They were really playing from behind, and that's what hurt them. And you have a higher propensity of taking penalties when you're playing from behind and you're trying to defend. It feels like the lines, like everything about it, it just like was like a recipe for chaos for the Leafs. So do I believe the conspiracy? No. Do I think there could have been more even calls? Yes. Do I think that the Maple Leafs got screwed though? Like, no, come on. Like they screwed themselves by just not playing well.
So let's take the penalties off the sheet. Sara, another thing that happened in this game is that Ilya Samsonov was pulled late in the game. As we record, it is being reported that he will start game 2 for Toronto. So there's no goalie controversy there yet, but in even strength play, and I'm looking at natural stat trick, in even strength play, so take the penalties away, The Lightning generated shot quality only worth 1.6 goals, yet they scored 3. So there was an opportunity here to keep goals off the board at even strength play, and the team didn't get it done. Now, again, I was not able to watch this game in total, and I would never say that any loss is directly responsible to one player only, but are we talking enough about the goaltending?
I liked that Samsonov came out and said, I played like shit tonight.
Yep,
I mean,
100%.
sometimes that's all there is to it. And you'd want that to be all there is to it. Like, I think he was pretty rattled, honestly. And I think that's what you want if you're the Leafs. Just like, not galaxy brain take, but it's like, okay, there's not a million things you need to be better at. And Marner arrived and they were gaining traction at some point. They came back and had a little second or first win, I guess, after they went down 3-0. But they want the goaltending one bad night to be the issue. So, okay, I like that they're starting him again in game 2. So we'll see, is that the issue? If it's really an issue, then they're screwed. But if it was just a fluke of like little jitterbugs, right, then that'll be good for them. But I don't know.
Little jitterbugs. Shayna, we talked about the bunting penalty. I think that was right to be a gamer, to kick him out. We again know he's going to have a hearing, which usually implies at least 1 game suspension to be coming down the pike. Assuming Bunting can't play, he's been a part of that Austin Matthews line this season. Who draws in? There are people speculating, could Matthew Nye see his first postseason action?
Yeah, so that was a very unnecessary, very undisciplined play. And for Bunting, like, if you're the coaches, you have to be super frustrated. Like, here's a first liner and a power play scorer out. There's a balance between discipline and physical play in the playoffs. And if you can't master that, you're going to miss time. Ask Nazem Kadri, who seems like he figured that out the last year. Yes, you know, things still got a little chaotic from last year, but still. So with this, it looks like Yarncroft's going to move up to the first line. And he's been very good at like being this like depth utility player for the Leafs. He can move anywhere in the lineup and be fine. He's a facilitator. He's not going to be the play driver. He doesn't need to be. But like, it's not the only change. So this is where it's going to get interesting. Like, we're seeing Ryan O'Reilly now move to the third line. He only played a part of a game there and then he got injured. So we haven't seen how he fares on his own in Toronto. We know on the second line, whether it's with Nylander or Marner on his right, plus Tavares on his left, like, he's in a great position, but like, who among us wouldn't be? That's one of the best combinations you can be in. Now it's going to be, can you manage your own line? Can you drive a line when you don't have as much support? And some of that support, it does look to be Matty Nyes. So it's going to be interesting because you have that like veteran two-way presence that should help prop him up, right? But we still have questions about O'Reilly individually and what he's going to do in this environment away from the Blues, now carrying his own line. So there's a lot of questions to ask, but like, the biggest thing with like the lineup changes, I still look at the Leafs and I go, do you have too many options? Are you going to over tinker and panic? Like, this is going to be, I think, the storyline throughout the series. If they lose this game, the question will be, did the coaches do too much? Or maybe did they not do enough on the back end? Because you still have, I think, Shannon Riley sticking together and Justin Hull staying in the lineup. But like, there's definitely, between all the moves they made, that like chance that the coaches are just panicking and doing too much. But like, that's the pressure of the playoffs, and it's even higher in Toronto. Like, it came with the territory.
To that point, Sara, let's wrap up this conversation on this game, which, of course, again, you guys, we're not making this a thing. The Leafs are making this a thing. But Shayna mentioned, injuries on the Toronto side. We've talked about Chernak being out. We talked about Hedman leaving the game, and Shayna brought up Isamont as well. What should the Lightning be concerned about from an injury perspective, particularly if Victor Hedman is out of the lineup come game 2?
I mean, I think the ball's in their court right now, and this is this team that they've built, right? I don't think they have to be concerned until they lose a game. It's like the Leafs, and I don't want to say the Leafs are handing it to them on a platter, but they kind of are. Like, it literally, they scored 7 goals. So I'm just going to say, hold off on the concerns until you have to worry.
Well, friends, we'll try not to focus too much on the Leafs, but they're doing it to us. And this is what happens in the postseason, and it's why we love it. Let's move on to the bigger picture of the first games. As we record, every series has played at least 1 game. And, so much is made of home ice advantage. You get the last change, you get the enthusiasm and the emotion of the fans. It used to be considered a bit of a lock, particularly in postseason play. But as of all of the game ones being completed, 6 of the road teams came away with wins in the 8 series being played, which again, I think is particularly impressive because the road teams are losing that ability to really control the matchups that they want and are the lower ranked teams in the matchup. So, quote unquote, theoretically, are not the stronger team in the matchup. Shayna, do you have any theories yet on why there were so many road team victories in these opening matchups?
Honestly, I don't. Like, there are series that could have gone either way, right? Like Rangers Devils, that's one that we could have seen go either way. You know, the Rangers had the deck stacked against them by the numbers and by the regular season metrics, but we kind of knew like there's a chance that could happen. But then you look at Colorado, Seattle, that's a little bit more surprising. And Winnipeg against the Golden Knights, that's a little bit more surprising too, especially because it wasn't just the Connor Hellenbuck show. He was great, but that's not why the Golden Knights really lost. Those are surprising, and it's going to be interesting to see how teams proceed moving forward. Like, you know, like the one that home ice sticks out to me the most would be the Oilers series, because on home ice for the Kings, they're going to control the matchups. And we know that means Philip Deneau against one of Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid and Anze Kopitar against the other. In game one, it was Deneau against McDavid. McDavid was better in the matchups, and it was Kopitar against Draisaitl, and it was fine in those minutes. So like the Oilers didn't get away from the matchup in game one. They didn't care. They just played their best players and let them be the best players. So that's the series to me that I'm like, okay, home ice matters a lot. Now I'm like, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it really doesn't. Maybe they switch Kopitar to McDavid and adjust that way tonight. But like, I don't know. All the other series, I'm like, maybe it motivates teams to step it up a little bit more. It's not like some huge red flag for me just yet.
Sara, to Shayna's point, we talk about the postseason because everything goes out the window. No matter what you did in the regular season, it's do or die almost every game and sometimes almost every play. Do you have any theories on why the road teams found such success in these opening games?
Well, it's interesting because I was talking to Taylor Hall yesterday, and he said he was watching the
Humble
NBA.
brag.
Yeah. Finally, insider, finally back in the rink, talking to players about stupid shit that doesn't matter, doesn't have to do with the game. But he said he was watching the NBA, so I was like, "Oh, do you have a favorite team?" And he was like, "Probably the Raptors, but I don't really watch in the regular season." But he's noticed this season the NBA has a lot more parity too, where teams on the road are also winning, just like in the NHL. So he was like, "You just have to be cognizant of these upsets," and I guess it's just happening everywhere. I don't really know why. I mean, I think it's way too early to try to make a theory about it. And I think there's so many young new players that are making these playoffs right now. Like I think about the Devils, but they were at home, but still, they looked so jittery for a reason. There's like 8 players on the team or whatever it is making their debut. So I think as players get more comfortable, things will change a little bit.
See, this is why we love how you work. I mean, who else comes up with that kind of nugget? I'm dead serious. Like, that's so cool. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it really
story.
is.
It really
Well,
is
it was
awesome.
cool of him. I really have appreciated the Bruins locker room. Like, it's a lot of well-seasoned guys who, when you ask a question, they really are just talking to you. And I appreciated Hall for that answer.
Well, you have to ask a good question to get a good answer.
Oh,
so
you always
just saying, because we've all
Thank
seen the
you.
bad questions. There you go. Good job. All right, my friends, again, 8 games, that's a lot to go through, and the Leafs commanded way too much of our time. So we, again, want to do things our way, which is a little different. And what we want to do is look at which series after game 1, knowing everything can be chaotic, look at the series as a whole and say, first, after game 1, which series has their stock rising in your mind? What are you more interested in than you expected to be after that first game? Tell us your stock rising series and why. Shayna.
Oh God, that's fucking hard. It's gonna be LA Edmonton. The stock was already high for me for that one because it's a rematch of last year. The Oilers have finally made really good moves at the deadline and improved a ton. And then you have the Kings, who legitimately improved since the deadline too. And the Kings aren't even fully healthy yet. The Oilers, the pace of the game for one, loved it, right? Like I think it was super exciting, super great to watch. The other part of it was where we expected the Oilers to be good, they were good, but it was a matter of discipline and things that you would think this shouldn't be hurting you. I was just like intrigued by it all. I want to see how this, continues to unfold, because the way the Oilers lost that 3-1 lead and the way the Kings battled back was really, really, really interesting for me. And it wasn't the way the Kings couldn't contain them as well offensively as you would think they should have wanted to. So I don't know. For me, I really want to see where that series goes.
Sara, which series are you more interested now today than you were 2 days ago?
Yes, we all know I really did care about the Kings Oilers, because I think the Kings are going to go on a run. But I would have to say the Stars and the Wild, because you've got everything. You've got Mike Rousseau doing clapbacks, which is always much watched Twitter entertainment. You've got double overtime, which, I mean, you got that in the Kings game too, but I just thought I expected that, and I was not expecting that here. I was expecting kind of like a 1-0 snooze fest, I guess, and I was wrong. So watching that, I'm like keeping an eye on that. At the same time, I do think we underestimated the Wild West to begin with, like just because it wasn't like as much of a bloodbath in the race to the playoffs didn't mean it wouldn't be now.
Shout out to the Wild West indeed. And unfortunately, Shayna already told me which one I have to pick. And it is the same as you, Sara. We all know, and Twitter called me out on it. You held me accountable. I didn't think that the Wild and the Stars was going to be very exciting either. But boy, was it. And now I am watching it out of a little bit of concern, because again, I think that the Pavelski loss can be very, very significant. The other one, and I didn't get to see this game last night, so I think this might be why the stock is rising for me, since I'll pick something different, is Jets in Vegas. I think the narrative of back to will over skill there. We all kind of thought Vegas was going to steamroll, and Winnipeg seems to have redeveloped the chip on their shoulder. So we'll see what comes of that matchup. We do have some breaking news just quickly. I'll share to keep folks up.
Breaking Bito news.
Thank you, Shayna. Would you like to share your breaking Bito news?
Sure. So in the spirit of how this affects the Leafs opponent, the Lightning, that's how they shall be referred to from now on, because while you play the Leafs, you belong to them. Mikey Eyssimont and Eric Chernak are both out for game 2. Victor Hedman is a game time decision, which is super interesting because he played 6:35 and 9 shifts, nothing in the second or third period. And Tanner Jeannot is a possibility. I did not think at all he was going to be a possibility to return to this postseason when we saw that injury. We all shit on the Tanner Jeannot acquisition for a good reason. The line of thinking for the Lightning of spend your picks, it doesn't matter to us now, makes absolutely a shit ton of sense. Those picks are not going to help this team extend their window, but when you start trading out, when you have a playoff window, that's a bad move. When you trade more assets for a player than they have goals, that's a bad move. But like how many of us said it? Like, we're going to forget about this being a bad trade when Tanner Jeannot scores the game-winning goal in game 6 or game 7 to clinch this series and really fuck the Leafs. Well, guess what, friends? It's a possibility now.
All right, let's go back to our round 1 interest levels, our vibes-o-meter. Sara, we talked about who we're more interested in. Who are you less interested in after seeing their game 1 performances?
Well, and here's the thing. I talked about the jitters before, and you could see that with all the young guys on the Devils, and you could see that with Vanecek. I did not like his performance, but I was less than impressed with the Devils when I thought this was going to be way closer in Devils Rangers game 1. So they're going to need a huge game 2 to recapture my interest, because that's what it's all about.
Shayna, what's your pick for stock dropping in your interest level, your watchability meter, if you will?
Yeah, the Devils Rangers are a good pick. I think you see the Devils' inexperience there, like shake their confidence in the power play. I think is going to be like the topic to talk about there. Okay, so I like your points about Winnipeg, LA. So and Winnipeg, Vegas. So I'm going to take them off my list because that was the one game that I was the least entertained by. I'm going to say Islanders against the Canes. I love a good defensive battle. I like watching the Islanders play. I like the factor of this team that can go in the postseason and make some noise. It was not a very exciting game 1. Like, my eyes were on Boston, Florida for sure, a lot more, because there was more pop and exciting plays. But with the Islanders, I'm watching that power play and I'm legitimately cringing. And it's not just, oh, you're going up against the power kill that the Canes have. They looked terrible on the power play. The power play has been bad. The last time the Islanders and Canes played each other in the playoffs, I got to write about them a bit. And I got to do something about the Islanders power play. And I spent all this time watching video, like clawing my eyes out, going, why the fuck do I put myself in this situation to watch this shit? So to be back there watching a terrible power play, I know they're making adjustments, but it's just like, they have to find a way to create some sort of offense at 5-on-5 and on the power play. And that was not a good showing. That the one goal was so lucky that they got. So hopefully that can, turn up the heat a little bit.
Yeah, I have to agree. I was so excited for the first games, and even if the Islanders were Islandering, I was excited to see Carolina, as you said, kind of push through and break through and do some unique different things. And I was, with all due, bored. And once the Boston game started, even though that was far more one-sided to me, we didn't even go back to Islanders Canes hardly at all, other than watch the score. It was just not grabbing my attention. And so I'll watch it to start, but then I'm flipping over to another game probably. So maybe I'll
just say it's because of Pasternak's mullet.
Yeah, the mullet is great. And like for the Islanders Canes, like you don't expect a lot of like rush based play. It's just like not their style. These are teams that thrive off of the forecheck. Like that can be exciting to watch. And that's 100%. The thing too. Like some people are like, oh, you just hate defense. You just hate the Islander style or whatever. Like it's not that. It was too low event. It was just,
yes,
there's a way to play that. Look, it's not like the Stars and the Wild are the most high event team. I guess in that game, the Wild had these big game saving plays that like caught your attention, like Brock Faber and Jonas Brodin. Like they had that, and this series just like didn't in game one. It just needs you need more oomph. Like that's it.
I won't hold it against either of you that you didn't pick Kraken Avalanche.
So
I always loved that.
Thought you were gonna go there.
That.
I have to watch.
I thought you were going to say that's the series to watch, so I didn't use them. And after I said the Oilers, I'm like, shit, she can't. Yeah. I'm like, you can't. That for me was a really good game and had my attention way more than the Jets. The star power versus depth is one of the most interesting storylines this entire postseason. I'm a broken record. I care about that. I want to see the Devils rush base play. Those are two things I'm like, I need to learn about. The way that the Kraken had scores you wouldn't anticipate, right? It wasn't even their best players scoring goals. It shows their strength. And the way they did contain, they didn't stop, McKinnon and Rantanen, but they contained them. Like that's it. You look at players like Crosby and McDavid, you're not stopping them. It's all about containing them. They did that enough that I was like, okay, like, all right, I want to see more. Like, I want to see where this series goes. How do the Avalanche adjust? We know they're one of the smartest teams.
It is interesting. It's kind of like the Analytics Cup, right? Because those are two organizations I have mad respect for their analytics teams. Go ahead, Sara.
Alison, the Kraken have always been really good on the road this season. Why do you think that is? Is it random?
Yeah, it's so I don't know, to be honest, right? And if we ask the players, they say they don't know. But the only theory I have on this, and I've said it a couple times, I think I said it when I was talking to Jeff Merrick on his show, is that because they are so deep and because the lines are, for all intents and purposes, equal in the sense that you never know which one is going to pop or produce in a game, the need to match lines isn't as big of a deal. So it's not so much like we have to put this line out to try and contain McKinnon, or we have to put this line out to stop whomever. Like it still matters, of course, that is a thing, but it's less relevant. And so maybe that's why. I don't know though.
That is really logical. Like a really good answer.
Is. Yeah. Who would we say, since we love the Kraken here, and look, every series we can go through, Kirill Kaprizov, player to watch, Nathan McKinnon, player to watch. For the Kraken, you don't have that same situation. Yes. Like for me, I'm watching Matty Beniers, our favorite. I gotta say Matty Beniers, cousin of Kazan. Like I love Yanni Gourde. I love how he plays in the playoffs. I feel like he's small but mighty, and I love that he can go against top competition and just disrupt them and piss them off. Like he's just someone that's hard to play against. So for me, like I'm watching him in this series. Who besides Matty Beniers and Yanni Gourde, Alison, should we be watching?
Okay, so I have to tell you a phenomenal Yanni Gourde story. So he's obviously French Canadian. So every once in a while, as does everyone who is speaking in a second language, there's adorable little translations that he does. And so before the game yesterday at morning skate, someone asked him if, because he's won 2 cups, if he shares his advice with his teammates. And he said, well, of course, if I was asked, I would share my experiences with joy. With joy. That's so okay. I thought it was adorable.
He's cute.
I know it's adorable.
That is adorable.
It's cute. It's just like
We'll root for him. Okay, he's the player to watch now.
Again,
Yeah.
Johnny Gord is definitely John Forslund has nicknamed him the Pepper Pot because he's so spicy and, like you said, just like a little
I
ball
love
of
that.
energy.
I
I'm
love his
trying-
whole path to the NHL too. Like
Yeah.
everything. Like this is
Right.
someone I feel like the odds are always against him, and he's like, nah, fuck you.
You know what? He's Gord. He's Gord at hockey. Get it? Okay, sorry.
We need a clip of that.
No, I mean, people are going to say that this is me being a homer again, but I really think that Alex Wenberg is a huge part of what makes the team work because he's so strong defensively and so good at puck possession and playmaking. And he had a goal last night, which is shocking because he's usually a playmaker and not a shooter. But I think he's another one to watch too. He's really, and I think he could see a lot of the minutes against McKinnon he has in the past. So there's my other one. to watch.
That's a big like center depth wins champions. Like we picked out 3 fucking centers.
Narrative.
The
All
revenge
right.
series narrative that's not allowed either because people are like, well, it's not like Grubauer left on bad terms. Like it doesn't fucking matter. He's playing his former team and he was excellent in game 1.
He played really well.
Yeah.
And he made a comment, and I think it's important to talk about the familiar, which goes back to the home ice thing. And we don't have time to go back to that now, but the familiarity with the ice, it's not just fans and all that. It's knowing how pucks bounce off certain boards in the arena. It's knowing how the ice behaves, what quality it is, where the lights affect the ice. That was something Philip Grubauer mentioned too. And I think he has such a familiarity in Ball Arena as well. But he played lights out. He was great.
That's cool. That's a really cool point. I didn't think
Yeah.
of it that way. Like you would think they know the arena, like they didn't stress like getting lost or something, but to know the lighting, like things like that, like that's really cool.
They didn't get lost.
Listen, I know you two and the quest for maps, and this is
Oh.
a big deal. I know you
Quest for
mentioned it.
maps.
Quest for map quest.
Call it a map quest.
Well, I don't want to get sued. I don't want to get a suit. We're already teetering the line with how does it affect the Leafs? So, quest for maps.
All right, my friends. Amazing. Let's end this episode as we always do, and that is with our favorite game, and that is Fuck, Marry, Kill. We have again a very Kraken heavy Fuck, Marry, Kill. It's not our fault though. We can't help it because our Fuck, Marry, Kill is players' first ever NHL postseason goal. Sara, you are going to go first. You get to Fuck, Marry, Kill Jack Hughes, who gets the lone score for the Devils in their game against the Rangers. Ellie Tolvanen, who gets the first goal in Kraken postseason history, maybe the best waiver wire pickup ever. And then you get Morgan Geekie, who gets the insurance goal for the Kraken, his first postseason goal in his career history. Sara, Fuck, Marry, Kill, go.
I know I kind of want to marry them all because they're all pretty special in their own ways, but I'm going to marry Eli Tolvanen because of the waiver wire story, right? That's unreal. And now I just love these moments that are etched into not only his own history forever because it's his first, but Kraken history. It did so many things with that goal on top of winning the game. So I'm going, contributing to winning the game. So I'm going with marrying that. I am going to fuck Morgan Geekie because you can't out Pizza the Hut. You really can't. Maybe you can't. And I'm going to kill Jack Hughes. I'm going back and forth in this because I think it's so important to not let Shesterkin get a shutout. And I think that was kind of a big boy goal at the Rock. Like, okay, I need to give the fans something to cheer about. And that's what a leader of a team does. But it simply was not good enough. But that's why I'm killing it.
Shayna, your turn.
Okay, I'm gonna kill Geeky's goal, process of elimination. Sorry, friend. I'm gonna fuck the Hughes goal because he couldn't manage it at even strength. He couldn't manage it on the power play. You got it on a penalty shot 1-on-1. That is not how the game is primarily played. So sorry, do better. But I'm not completely killing it because I think that was a very important goal for his confidence level because with star players that are young, inexperienced, and now we're trying to play a style of play that typically doesn't work in the playoffs. I think any goals are going to bring some confidence. It's going to trickle into even strength play and make for a better series. So let's see the impact that has. And like you said, like getting into Shesterkin's head, getting out of his own head of not allowing a shutout and getting something going. So I'll give him that credit. And then I will marry the Tolvanen in goal. Like, first of all, this is such a good reclamation project. This is the risk of giving up on a prospect too early. And it's so interesting because the second he was put on Seattle, even though it was on the third line, he had more support than he ever did in Nashville. You look at the way the Predators forward group is, like how few players except for the first line, and Roman Josi can actually even like carry the puck into the zone. Like, it's, you need a driver somewhere, because here's a player that's known for like the flash, the shot, and not enough elsewhere. You give him a little bit of support in our friend Yanni Gord and, you know, players like that, and it's a completely different ball game. So it's all about maximizing a player and showing how it's done. So there's a good lesson to learn here, that you bet on skilled players, and more players should have jumped at him when he was on waivers.
It is insane that the Kraken got him at wherever they were at the waiver wire line at that time. It's just ridiculous. But he's actually sneaky good defensively, and people just never gave him credit for that. I am going.
I don't know if did he have the chance to show that in Nashville?
No,
do you think?
Yeah, he just wasn't getting deployed properly, some would say. I didn't actually pay attention as much until he was part of the Kraken. So
That's fair.
That's what I seem to understand from those who did. All right, I am going to. This is hard. I think I'm agreeing with Sara in that I'm going to kill the Jack Hughes goal because it is important, but penalty shots, like Shayna said, not really a thing. So God bless, but no. Good for you though.
If that was a power play, just an actual power play, they probably would have done nothing with it.
Yes. I am going to. Okay. I'm going to marry the Tolvanen goal because it is such a historic moment, and I think it's a real testament to that line. And it came off the forecheck, which is what the Kraken wanted to do. And it's, you know, a postseason score for him and with his new team. It's a very exciting story. So I have to marry that. And I'm going to fuck the Morgan Geekie goal. I'm torn. I almost married it because Morgan Geekie was instrumental in what was the game-winning goal by Alexander Wenberg, but he did not quote unquote assist on it, so he doesn't get a point. So I was just really happy to see him get on the score sheet, since that's what people often only have time to reference. So I was glad to see him get that, but because it wasn't the first one and it wasn't the game winner, we'll fuck that as well. All right, we did it, my friends. Through the beginning of the chaos, throughout the rest of the chaos, we at Too Many Men are going to be here with you, giving you all of our takes in confident style, like Sara does, as Dan Le Batard is mentoring us every day. Remember that if you want to follow us on other channels, we are on Instagram and Twitter at 2_much_man. 2_much_man. I'm on 4 hours of sleep because Shayna yelled at me this morning for being up too early.
You were up at 7 a.m. your time, and I was just getting out of bed like a little bit before you. Like, and I'm 3 hours ahead. Like, come on. You make me look bad.
No.
Yeah, so do I. But like, come on.
Anyway, follow us on the socials, 2_much_man. I'd like to give a shout out to listeners and friends of the pod, Ashley Church and her partner, James. They have actually gotten us a domain, my friends, for our merch. You can go to 2manymenmerch.com and find all of our sweet, sweet sweatshirts, hats, burn books, watch bands, switch cases, and more coming soon in all of the lines of marketing that we love to do. As you all well know, we take those proceeds and we turn them around and invest them into people and purposes that are trying to make hockey a better, more inclusive space. And that is what we ask you to do as we leave you today. As we wish you a wonderful, happy, continued postseason, please do something, no matter how big or small, to make sure that hockey truly is for everyone. We will talk to you soon.
Love you.
Bye.